Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to yet another engaging conversation. At a time when Operation Sindoor is still on, there is just a temporary stoppage. Comes the release of a book from the former Army Chief, General Nirmal Vij. He was the Army Chief between 2003 and 2005, so nearly 20 years on. He is coming out with this book, which says Decision Making in Critical Times. That's the tagline, Alone in the Ring. Now, many would believe that Bharat is also alone in the ring in this fight against its neighbors, where many believe it's a 2.5 front war because there is a point 0.5 of the amplification, but largely a two front war. And Operation Sindoor perhaps also talks about a different dynamic. With me is General Vij. General Vij, namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you, sir, for your time. My first question to you, what brought about this book?
Yeah, you see, during the last 6 years of my service, I was privileged to be associated with all the appointments which had something to do with the operation. Starting from the DGMO when Kargil happened, then Vice Chief, Prakrab happened, and then as the Chief, of course, you are involved with all these things. So a lot of things happened, and I wanted to put that down for the future generations because it is my firm belief that starting from a single striper to the chief, I'm saying, everybody is on the learning curve in the army because dynamics of each war are different and you learn from each one of them. So I wanted to share those, and that's how we learn in our profession from each other.
But General Saab, how is it different? 2099, 2003 Kargil conflict, you were there in the thick of it, but it was limited to that section only and that region only. To 20 years later comes Operation Sindoor, where the whole dynamics of engagement has changed. How is it different?
Oh, a lot of difference. A lot of difference of the governmental approach. And also, I think our standing in the world. In 99 to now, in 99, we had just had the nuclear thing done. And the government was somewhat reluctant, and they wanted to put up a very straight face and show to the world that we are a very responsible nation and we'll never get involved into things of that kind. So for that reason, there's a lot of difference. And now the government has made an announcement well and clear that wherever you are to the terrorists, we'll chase you, however deep you inside Pakistan you may be. You will not be left unhunted in any corner of the country. So there's a difference in approach, very approach. In 99, we didn't want to do that. That's why we did Kargil. Otherwise, if it was in the environment of Operation Sindoor, we wouldn't have gone into Kargil. We would have gone into other areas which were much easier to take and maybe tackle Kargil much later. So there's a lot of difference. That is one part of the governmental approach. The second is technology.
Ji.
Weapon systems, everything. So much has changed. So much has changed. Now you are firing beyond visual range. You are not even seeing each other. At that time, that didn't happen. Our aircraft flew over the objective area. We had few setbacks in the beginning when our helicopters were shot down, aircraft were shot down. And they were told even not to cross the LOC while flying, which was a very difficult operation for them to do. And hats off to the Air Force. They did a very good job. So the world has changed since 99. And India has changed a lot. Of course, having said this, I will also in the same breath say that we need to move much, much ahead.
Much ahead.
Because we have a security paradigm around us which is very dense. You see the Chinese are there and the Pakistanis, of course, the sworn problem with us. And they are also acting as the proxies of China. Now you've got another problem cropping up, that is in the Bangladesh area. So we need the kind of preparation and readiness and equipment level, which is of a much higher class and even much more in quantity.
So then,
And so the manpower. I will not leave the manpower out because manpower in all these hills and all that is a very important part. So technology alone, to my mind, will not work. You need technology to be backed by the manpower.
two critical things that you've spoken about here is one is Operation Kukri that was in Sierra Leone. The other one is the fencing of that 750 kilometer LOC. Now, this is against the Dushman. Many people say talk to the enemy, dialogue is the way forward. But you can't have a dialogue with a snake whose objective is to poison you after biting you. So, how does one take decisions here?
So I'll take Kukri first for a moment because alone in the ring, that's what we come to.
Ji.
You see, in Kukri also, we had peacekeepers
Ji.
in Sierra Leone, in the part of UNAMCEL.
About 222 of them, no?
223 peacekeepers and 11 military observers were taken hostage by them because under Article 6 you couldn't open fire to defend yourself. And it carried on for a month and a half. Nothing happened. Then the government decided that a delegation led by the DGMO, that was self, and two members, one was Mr. Lali from the Defense Ministry, JSG, and Mr. Srivastava, who was an ambassador, permanent ambassador to the UN. We went as a delegation. We went to UK, we went to USA, and we went to UN. We talked to everyone, and we found that instead of being sympathetic with us and supporting us, they were not even empathetic to us. So we came back to Sierra Leone, worked out an operational plan with the force commander. Of course, the government had to take a decision. We did it as a precautionary measure. And force commander was an Indian Major General, then now Lieutenant General Jetli, and came back to the to Delhi, presented to the defense minister and to the foreign minister that the chief told me to brief them, and they both agreed. Ultimately, there is no answer, after some reluctance, of course. And then a presentation was given to the Prime Minister. Of all opposition parties were also there. And Mr. Jaswant Singh and myself did it. Mr. Jaswant Singh talked of the political part, I did the ground part. And then the Prime Minister had only one question: how many casualties will take place? So I told him, I said, sir, look, casualties are part of any operation. They're inbuilt into it. You cannot wish away the casualties. But yes, I think we will not have much casualties because our level of training is good. And they are only the insurgents kinds of people. We will not be able. Ultimately, the operation was carried on 13 to 16 July. And beautifully done. Only one person died on our side. That too was a driver. But why I have mentioned about the casualty part, casualties should not worry us too much. Because if you have to fight a war, casualties are part of it. And second part, which is important, is that, look, nobody came to support us.
Correct.
Neither the Americans nor the Britishers. They were actually trying to lecture me, and I got a little worked up with the Britishers and told them that your entire army is equivalent to one corps of ours. And I've got 11 corps in the Indian army. So don't lecture me on what should be done or not done. That's beside the point. But the two issues about alone, you are left alone. Even now, in Sindoor, people have, everybody has said, okay, look, there should be peace, get back to the normalcy, have dialogue. And nobody has told us that, look, you are a sufferer of the, of the terrorism, and it is a problem of the world, not only of you, and we should all chip in and see that this menace is done down. Nobody did. And that is despite our standing. Mind you, standing of India today, or standing of 99, which you talked of earlier, two different things. So I think ultimately we must be prepared for ourselves and prepared much, much better.
तो जो करना है खुद ही करना पड़ेगा. We'll have to do it अपने आप ही करना. We'll have to do it on our own.
People, always national interest, they keep a neutral stance. They'll support you, but with a neutral stance, that doesn't mean much to you.
Yeah, and they also will want to see what is the resolve of this nation. Can it do things on its own? Do you always see that people come to stand or support someone who can stand on their own? They will all group around a person who has their own, perhaps, individuality and perhaps a certain level of strength. Would you agree with that?
Yes. If you are strong, everybody will come and support you. And we are far more stronger than Pakistan. But then Pakistan has their own proxy. China is the one supporting them. They have actively supported them, actually. They moved in their thing and they supported them. So you have to be that strong that you cater for both these threats together.
Sir, I'll come. I want you to speak in at length on this entire geopolitical scenario and why China is the real enemy in a bit. The other part you said is, we are always worried about casualties. Even this time, Rafale gaya ki nahi gaya, Miraj gaya ki nahi, apne kitne ठुके, अपना कोई मरा कि नहीं. Why is this attitude there? From the polity to also common people, they are not bothered about whether we've won or not, दुश्मन को सबक सिखाया कि नहीं, कितना मारा. They are always worried about कितना मार खाया, कुछ होगा कि नहीं हमें. Why?
Well, that is not in the soldiers. That's not in the soldiers. That's not in the armed forces. because as I said, casualties are inbuilt, and I mentioned it to the
Yeah.
Prime Minister very clearly. But in the civil side, it is. Because they look at a war in terms of casualties and no casualty. But how can you fight a war without casualties? Because war is being fought by two sides. The other side is also chipping in. No, they are not only letting you do your bit. You are not a boxer who's only one boxer is hitting and the other is only receiving. That doesn't happen.
एक दो
like
पंच तो पड़ेगा ही. हाँ, हाँ.
it doesn't happen like
Correct.
that. So for that reason, I think this should be a little underplayed, and one should not overly worry about it. Yes, if you find some problem in your deficiencies in your equipment, because of which you have suffered casualties, we must try and overcome before the next round begins.
Correct.
That is important. Casualties will always occur.
It'll always occur. No, I'm just asking you to tell people, the common people or civilians, if I were to say,
Yeah.
because one of the first questions, I'll tell you, General Saab, which I've always heard from everyone, अंदर की बता, अपना रफाल गया कि नहीं गया, हमारे कितने प्लेन गए और कितने लोग हमारे मरे. They are not bothered about यार 6 बेस ठोके कि 7 बेस ठोके या कितना हमने उधर कितना मारा दुश्मन को. They don't ask that question. So I'm just saying, is this a wiring is a
Yeah,
problem?
I think what has happened, the twice thrice the action which was done earlier, like the surgical strike and also Balakot, we came away without any casualties. And even in Sierra Leone, which I mentioned, which most of the people don't really remember,
Yeah.
we came away with virtually no casualty, one casualty, and a 5-phase operation in Sierra Leone,
Yeah.
which was done.
That was a huge one.
Yes,
That was
because
a big
we
one.
moved for that additional troops from here, 10,000 kilometers away. 1 battalion, 2 para-commando team, back company, and engineer company, and the attack hepters. Despite that size of force, one casualty. So people have got used to the idea of fighting a war without casualties. Not possible.
Not
Not possible and not desirable to give that kind of emphasis which we are doing now.
The another thing, General
We
Saab,
must discourage people from, actually educate people, not discourage will be a wrong word. Educate people that casualties are inbuilt into operations.
yeah. So, we must always say that when you get into a fight, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So, depending upon the scale of the fight and the engagement, so one has to be able to ready to not just bear losses, but then continue to push on and press on with the objective on mind. The other thing is, the common feeling, General Saab, is oftentimes we as when I say we, Bharat as a nation, has had the upper hand and let the opportunity slip away. We've stopped short as a nation of pinning down the enemy and rubbing them to the dust. I'm saying this because you are a 71 war veteran. You've seen 71. You've led and you've also been in the thick of action with Kargil. And now you have seen what's happened with Op Sindoor. Especially with Operation Sindoor, many believe we should not have stopped. We had the enemy on the mat. We should have pressed home, perhaps for a far greater punitive advantage. Now, this is where the critical decision-making aspect comes in. Why would somebody make a decision at that time? What are the factors that come into mind?
Yeah, you see.
And do you believe that we should have pressed on, or it was right that we stopped?
Firstly, we must see what was the aim of the operation. When we went in, when the government decided to go in, they made their aim very clear that we are going after the terrorists, and this time we'll teach you a lesson wherever you may be hiding, however deep you may be inside Pakistan, we'll come after you. So the aim of the operation when it started was to go after the terrorists. And which we did. We went into Punjab. We went about 120, 30 kilometers inside Pakistan and hit them. And hit them in large numbers. And shamefully, the Pakistanis even attended the funeral ceremony of their people. Which shows to the world. So why the world is blind? They don't understand how is the terrorism being run and sponsored by that country. But having said that, I must say that you have set out with a particular aim. And you said we will control the escalation. We didn't want to escalate it beyond that. The idea was not to fight a war because there is one issue that is India today is on a growing path.
Yeah.
Our main priority is to grow as a country rapidly. We are the fastest growing economy. Grow even faster if possible. Get into a state where you pull maximum people out of poverty. You are one of the strongest nations. You don't want to deviate from your aim. So the government must have thought that our purpose has been served. Escalation was done by them. They escalated, we counter-escalated. They went one step, we went two steps. They went two steps, we went four steps. And ultimately, we hit 9 of their
Air bases,
airfields,
yeah.
air bases. We destroyed 4 of their radar sites. We done fair amount of damage, good amount of damage to them. And then given them a message they should have understood. That's why they came begging to have a ceasefire. Now, if you want to fight a long-drawn war, ultimately you'll again land up in the diplomatic discussions.
Yeah.
So how much purpose will be served or not, the government in their best consultation and discussion among themselves would have decided that this is not our aim. Next time if it happens, we'll perhaps go a step further. Because you see, in any war there are two parts. One is the battlefield part. The second is the narrative building part.
Yeah.
The narrative which we built was that we are going after the terrorists.
Correct.
Having said that and drummed their point in again and again, now to deviate from that and start a full-fledged war,
It would have hurt our cause.
Yeah,
Internationally, Bharat's perception itself would have changed. There could
yeah,
have been.
then people would have said that they said about the terrorism, now they are into a full-scale war. And full-scale war, in any case, doesn't finish in days.
In days, yeah.
It takes, it may take a year. You have seen now,
Yeah.
Russia and Ukraine, where is the comparison? But it's dragging on, no?
Correct.
So I don't think it was in our interest. That is my assessment, but the government will know far, far better because they are the ones who set out the aim. The people who set out the aim, they will know better.
But General Saab, you've also written about doctrines. Do we have a doctrine?
No. Now, that is in my entire book, virtually in every chapter,
Yeah.
I have talked about doctrine. Because doctrine is very important. That gives you an understanding as to what is expected of you from the armed forces. Now, I give you an example of Prakram.
Jake.
You know, we were there for 8 months.
Correct.
And every day waiting for something to happen.
Huh.
But it didn't come about. If there was a doctrine, we'll understand that if we have deployed in such strength, where at the end of it, we had 1,000 people killed
Ji.
because of the mine laying and demining and other things, which is double of that of Kargil. Perhaps the aim would have been clear and we would have gone accordingly, tailored our speed, tailored our various other drills which we didn't do. So doctrine is a must. Fortunately now, the Prime Minister himself has announced 3 points,
Ji.
which are very clear that any act of terror will be taken as an act of
War.
So any act of terror, it doesn't mean every incident is a
Correct. Future act of terror.
yeah, act of terror. Something like Pulwama, something
Pahalgam.
like Uri, Pathankot, Riyasi also I'll count
Yeah,
in that.
Riyasi, huh.
Things of that kind. Number 2, we will take any act of terrorism as a state-sponsored terrorism, which we've been saying from the times immemorial.
Correct.
And the third thing is that we don't believe in nuclear bluff. Because Pakistan has been using some term like NWET, nuclear thing with the terrorism, you know. That we'll use the nuclear threat to stop your terrorism, which they did effectively. That's what Kargil also we were confined to the Kargil area. So I think some kind of a doctrine has come about and more will be built on this. But a doctrine is a must. But I must, having said this, I am a believer of that. Not everybody may be a believer of that because some people say don't put your things down in writing. Why should you tell the other man what you intend to do?
Correct.
But most of the advanced countries in the world have got their doctrines laid down. Even China has got their doctrine put down there.
Put down.
Put down there.
So, when you say doctrine is based on are you saying a comprehensive national security doctrine, or are you saying that a comprehensive action plan or a theatre of action for the armed forces?
No, it will be a comprehensive national security doctrine because the wars are not fought by the armies alone. These are whole of the government approach. You know, it will be political, it will be economic, it will be all kinds of things.
Yeah, energy, everything will come into play.
Everything,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything counts. Everything counts. So it will be a full-fledged thing. So everybody understands the other's role and how they will act and how much, up to what limit we can go to. So and then battlefield is, of course, one part, where there has got to be a total understanding between the government and the armed forces, which I would say, Prakram is again, I'll go back to Prakram, we didn't know. The chiefs asked the government as to what would be our aim, and they were told, you first deploy, we'll let you know, which was never clarified.
Yeah.
But now take this example of Sindoor. I think it's a very good example where the government has told the armed forces what to do. And not only that, they had told them that we'll go up to this. They said if we cross this threshold, we'll go to the next step, be prepared for that. That's what I'm told.
Yeah.
What I read in the newspaper from you people. And here on the TV channels, I don't ask anybody any questions of this kind. So I think doctrines are important, and at least more than that, doctrines even, the understanding between the government and the military leadership must be total.
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 So let me ask you, sir, now let me take you back a little to the time when you were a young junior officer and perhaps a commander at the 71 war.
Yeah.
Now, compared to, was there a huge amount of international influence at that time compared to a Donald Trump claiming he's the one who brokered ceasefire this time around? How has the dynamic changed? And at every point, I come back to that question. Have we let the enemy off the hook? And has that come back to hurt us? Because even now you said कि वह फिर वापस आएंगे. अगर फिर वापस आएंगे तो खत्म क्यों नहीं किया? Because our scriptures, Chanakya, if you read Kautilya, if you read Bhishma, as he advised Yudhishthira, at all points said, finish off the enemy that is going to, don't let the enemy, give the enemy another chance. Porus give, or Sikandar gave, Prithviraj Chauhan gave another chance. And he came back, Gori came back. So those things, don't we learn our lessons? Or is it too much of international
I'll
pressure?
take first part of your question first. Was there an international influence? We were young officers at that time. I will not be able to say it with that much of authority. But what one, even then, if you remember, the 7th Fleet came into Bay of Bengal. The Americans were putting pressure on us to stop it. Because they knew that the Pakistanis will not be able to withstand us in the western sector. As you only mentioned that we almost were on the gates of Lahore. Somewhere near that post office, which is, I believe, outside Lahore.
Yeah, the post office, correct. General D.B. Shekhatkar has pictures of his, command and the troops present there.
So the point is, but we stopped the war. Because our purpose was to divide Pakistan into two. And when the moment we took Bangladesh, the ceasefire was declared by us. So that is 71, but the pressure was there. The Americans were putting pressure on us. I believe, I have learned, I am not sure, that the Chinese were also wanting to come in. And they were told by the Russians to lay off. So they said otherwise they'll use nukes. This is what I read those days.
Okay.
From whatever came in the paper.
No, but land and territory that Bharat had acquired, we don't learn from our enemies also. Chini to jahan ghus jate hain, wahin baith jate hain. Why didn't we go back and sit where we were and say, acha, yahan se is the new normal?
That we have done, unfortunately, that is outside my realm of scope. But like we gave away Haji Pir after 65. Now Haji Pir has a tremendous value. If Haji Pir was with us, then the valley will not be separated,
Correct.
From which you are there. But that has been the government approach. In 71 also we gave away 93,000 prisoners.
Correct.
And today the Pakistan has the audacity to tell you that we will not stand by Shimla Agreement. They begged for Shimla Agreement. And Mrs. Gandhi, in her wisdom, for whatever reason, she agreed. So these are the governmental decisions which at times one may not agree with. But ultimately it is their call because we are in a democratic setup.
No, but as a soldier, as an army chief, 2003, 2005, at that time also Bharat had just come out of the Kargil conflict, had just gotten over. Did we then did we cede territory at that time? We had captured important peaks. We could have gone further on, even from the Siachen point of view. Was there advantage that perhaps as a nation, we should not have ceded in the larger national interest at that time?
Yes.
You've written some of it.
Yeah. You see, even now you that talked of Siachen, when the Dr. Manmohan Singh government came in, there was some kind of a thought process to make peace with Pakistan and all that. All governments have tried.
Yeah.
All governments have tried that we must reach some kind of an understanding with them for two reasons. Firstly, not good to have a hostile neighbor for all along. And secondly, we had to cater for China also. So our effort has been always that one of the two must be settled. And I remember there was a discussion in the military operations office. I was the chief that time. And the government made a suggestion that we pull back. So we told the government that, look, if you want to pull back, it is not in terms of distance. That you go back 5 kilometers, I go back 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
Because 5 kilometers on my side will take me 5 days to reach.
Yeah.
For Pakistanis, it will take 2 hours to reach.
Yeah.
So that's not acceptable. And we cannot go on this kind of an understanding. And then we also mentioned to Dr. Manmohan Singh that, look, 2 things we should never forget. That we can never trust the Pakistanis.
Huh.
They will breach.
Huh.
They'll breach the agreement because now the insurgency is taking place.
Correct.
Militancy is taking place. They say we are not doing it. But they cannot do it unless they are briefed in the forward post of Pakistan.
Correct.
And, they spent one full night trying to study the area ahead. And secondly, even when Prime Minister Vajpayee was on bus yatra in Lahore,
yeah.
the Pakistanis were intruding into Kargil.
Into Kargil.
They had the audacity to do that. This kind of a neighbor you have got. So, trusting Pakistan is not possible. The government listened. Dr. Manmohan Singh, I must say, give him, though he called me hawkish, he said, General, you are very hawkish. So I said, I'm not hawkish. I'm a professional. It's my duty, sir, to tell you everything which is right. What is the final decision that is your prerogative.
Yeah, prerogative.
But I must tell you, and I should not hold it back, so that there's any lack of understanding on this. Then he said, where can we discuss it? I took him to the DGMO's office, my old office. I said, you people can sit down here. The retired CCS went there, sat for about half an hour, had, I don't know how many cups of coffee. And after that, they came back. And I must say, to the sagacity of that government, they said, okay, we agree with you. And we will not. So the governments take a decision. It is our job also to tell them as to what is right or wrong, and we should not hold back. As professional, it is our duty. If you permit me, I can give you another anecdote.
Please.
General McMaster, who was Lieutenant General McMaster, who was the NSA of Trump 1, who was also, of course, sacked after some time, like his 4 NSAs. He has written a book, Dereliction of Duty, The 5 Silent Men. He's talked of Vietnam War. And he says that, look, those 5 chiefs didn't have enough personal rapport with the president and the other people to make them understand their viewpoint, because of which we suffered. I entirely agree with him. But instead of personal, in my book I have said it should be professional rapport. I don't believe in personal rapport with the government. We are 2 different sets of...
Well, anything which is in the larger interest of the country has to be a unified line of... everybody has to be aligned with that, be it a politician, be it a policy maker, or be it a Fauji or a soldier. At all points...
everybody has his own expertise. Everybody has
But the larger alignment is the greater interest of the country and the long-term security and sovereignty of the country. Now, General Sahab, we have limited time. In the book, you've talked about some portions where you also hint at a larger enemy. So even now you spoke about China as the big enemy or the biggest one. You also mentioned Bangladesh. So in the current scenario, how do you read China? What should be Bharat's position? And is it a 2-front war? Is it 2.5? Is it 3-front war for us? How should we look at it?
It's a very, very important question for India. Not only for us here, for the government of India, for everybody in the country to understand this, that India is in one of the most dense environment as far as our security paradigm is concerned. You see, your northern borders are heavily invested by China, and they've been not wanting to settle the border issue. They settled for the next generation to come. They've settled it with 14 countries, but not with us. On the west is Pakistan, which is a sworn enemy, because they feel that their very survival depends on keeping India in turmoil, and they want to grab Kashmir. But Kashmir may not be their only aim. If that happens, they can move further. Then you have now Bangladesh, which has come up, with whom we had decent relation, but now bit of a turmoil. And Bangladesh is very important for us to move to the east. To conduct our war against China, defend ourselves against China, we need Bangladesh. We have to pass through that small chicken's neck. And Indian Ocean is, of course, a domain for all navies of the world.
Correct.
The Americans are there, the Chinese are there, their submarines are there. We are there. There's so many others are there. The Europeans are also there. So a country like us, which has security issues of this kind, and we have the experience behind us, like the recent Sindoor,
Ji.
where you saw that nobody really stood up with you.
Yeah, we are alone in the ring.
We are
Alone on the-
ultimately left by yourself.
Yeah.
If you are very strong, people will perhaps support you. I think there is a requirement for India to look at security in total context and not hope and pray for that we'll make friends with these people. China will someday be friendly with us. Pakistan will be friendly with us. We've been trying it.
It's not worked.
I joined the army in 62. Since 62, we've been learning this. And we have been also learning one thing more. You will be surprised. All along our younger age, we were told that, look, stable Pakistan is in our favor. Right? That is what has been the government of India's approach. But it has not happened. So if it has not happened in all these years, it's not going to happen in future
In
also.
future. In future now.
So we have to prepare for ourselves. So the kind of budget which we have, rather than going in terms of percentages of GDP, I like to look at it the kind of money which we need. Perhaps what we are spending double of that, maybe more that the present leadership will be able to tell. And that kind of money we need to spend and spend quickly, because the preparation of armed forces takes a lot of gestation period.
Ji.
There's a lot of time it takes.
agree.
Even if you place an order, say today, I want 500 so-and-so aircraft, they'll take 10 years to produce, maybe more, because those lines will have to be set up. So I think we need to spend much more. We need to keep technologically ourselves absolutely on the top. We need to look at cyber, space. Space is another dimension, very important. And of course, the manpower. Manpower, I am basically an infantry, and I know how the hills gobble up the manpower. For kilometers, you don't get to see anybody, and you need to deploy in the entire area, because any area can be used. All these things have got to be taken into account.
True.
And the sooner we get started in that direction, to mind you, I must give a lot of credit to the present government. A lot of things have been done. From the time I was in service till now, the world has changed. As the armed forces are there in the level of preparation.
General Saab, do you think the next war, my final question to you, we are alone in the ring, you've highlighted that. You think this chicken's neck is going to be perhaps a jugular that the Chinese will go for with the Bangladesh?
In Myanmar. It is a problem.
No, the Siliguri corridor.
Yes, it is a problem. It will be a problem, and
आपके टाइम में हरकत करने की कोशिश की थी
No, in our time, you see, there was a friendly government. Sheikh Hasina's government, which stayed on for 14 years, was a friendly government, and the reality is also that India has helped Bangladesh a lot.
Correct.
To develop economically. As a matter of fact, their GDP, not GDP, but their per capita perhaps went beyond us also because of our help. But now with the present government and the kind of uncertainty which lies with them, which they even are telling you that, look, the eastern part of India is isolated.
Yeah.
I will not trust them. And we will need troops to take care of that part also. And that will not only be, using troops and losing that many troops against China, but also a point of, a kind of a roadblock on the way. So we need to cater for that. And Bangladesh, we should not take it for granted now for ever, I think, till the time. As a matter of fact, in the armed forces, my belief is we should take nothing for granted. Cater for the worst.
Cater for the West. Yeah.
That's what helps.
Hope for the best and prepare for the
Yes,
worst.
hope for the best. That depends on the expertise of your government and the international environment and how economically we are strong. That is, you see, government has many issues. We can suggest. So, in fairness to them, I must say this also, that they have to have their priorities also right. But this priority cannot be at the cost of the priority of your preparedness.
We have to be prepared at all points of time. Amazing conversation. General Nirmal Vij's book, Alone in the Ring, sharp at 82, isn't he? Amazing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Hind, sir.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.